Yep. All right, right on. So, we're getting back to Titus. We haven't quite been, we didn't have Sunday school last week, so we're getting to it now. We're talking about, if you remember the grand scheme of things, Paul was wanting to set up, continue his work on the island of Crete, setting up churches there. To do that, he sent his fixer, who is Titus, that he kind of sends into these areas that need a lot of help. He sends Titus down there to try and help set up some of these churches, and I kind of put chapter 1, verses 5 through 9, I put order and elders. He wants him to get down there and establish some order in the church, get it kind of set up and organized, and then get some elders to be able to run it and keep it moving forward, right? So that was kind of the whole process. In doing that, he doesn't spend basically any time at all, more or less, on the order part, like the actual nuts and bolts working relationship and the business of the day in the church, because every church is a little bit different. He kind of focuses more on the elder part, because if you've got the right guys leading, then the right results are going to come from it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way it kind of goes. So we saw that in verse 5, that's where he said, that's where Paul had written to Timothy about that he wants to set things in order and appoint elders. That's where we get that from. And then we went through all of verse 6 and started into verse 7, looking at what it looks like to have this elder, this leader in this church, and what that's kind of looking like. I think the overview, I guess you could say, of what this job is about comes in verse 6, where it talks about being blameless. It's kind of a large word, but I think it kind of encompasses what we're talking about here. In verse 6, it says, if a man is blameless, there. And then we also, once again, kind of see that same sentiment given in verse 7. For a bishop must be blameless. The first guy he's talking about is kind of this elder. Appoint elders, leaders of that. These bishops, once again, a bishop is... losing my mind right now. I am losing my mind. A bishop is actually someone like a herald, someone appointed to that position, a herald to that position, somebody who is giving and operating within the confines of a representative, so to speak, of the person that has sent them, type of a thing. If you look at that word elder that we looked at before, that word elder kind of refers to maybe an older person, potentially somebody who is got more experience, type of a thing, that kind of a scenario. This elder, though, is somebody that you might look to kind of in a like a mentoring kind of position, that kind of a thing. We see that Paul has used in times past these two words between this elder and this bishop kind of interchangeably a little bit, although they're not quite the same word. An overseer, a bishop is an overseer, that's the word I was looking for, I just found it. Is an overseer somebody who kind of leads the way, and that's what he's kind of looking for as he defines these jobs, so to speak, and defines what this leadership position looks like. That in turn, I think, will help motivate them to find the order and the structure that they need in the church. Okay, so here we go. We see that blameless thing come up more than once. So I think blameless, that concept of blameless, is kind of about the maturity and the reputation of the person who's in the leadership position, and it kind of goes for this elder or this bishop that's going through here. We saw that he's a one-woman man, that he has not just children. If he has children, they're children that believe. They're not prone to chaotic or rebellious lifestyles. Once again, the words that are used there are children that, it's not looking for perfection. We must understand that no matter what we do when we look at this, because we're about to look at a couple of more quote unquote job descriptions, one of which is holy, which means devoid of sin, basically, is what the concept of it is. But we're not talking about perfection, and we'll get there. But we're not talking about perfection because, this side of heaven, no such thing exists, right? So, but we're talking about how, we're talking about the maturity and the reputation that is being cultivated through how you live in the family unit, okay? And then also, I told you that these descriptions talk about it talks about like how you conduct yourself at home. We saw the same kind of thing happen in 1 Timothy, if you remember, how you conduct yourself at home, how you conduct yourself personally, and how you conduct yourself outwardly, right? So here we see that we start off with how you conduct yourself at home, basically is this part in verse 6. We started in verse 7 talking about being self-willed and quick-tempered and addicted to wine, or having control over yourself. This concept of addicted to wine, we're actually going to see the concept in just a few minutes of being self-controlled. So here we'll see addicted to wine, and it gives the idea of being self-controlled. But I want us to make sure that we understand that this addiction, the concept there is the addiction part. Okay, I don't know if I stressed this enough last time. We're going to see self-controlled. You need to be self-controlled, of course. But this addiction part is kind of the key there, because you're not surrendering. Being self-controlled means that you have, the reins on who you are and what you're doing and stuff like that. And you want that, and you don't want to be addicted to wine. But this concept of addiction gives the idea that you are surrendering control to something else. You know what I mean? You're surrendering control. This says addicted to wine. I don't know that it's limited to just wine. I think addiction can be anything. But you're voluntarily surrendering control, to the substance or to this outside force, right? And that's no bueno. So that's kind of that thing. These things, the self-will, quick-tempered, addicted to wine, this whole is a concept of who you are on the inside, okay? Who you are on the inside. This is who you are to your family. This is who you are, inside of you. Does anybody have any questions or anything about that? You kind of all remember that? Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 7. We're going to see, for a bishop must be blameless, once again, a good steward of God, blameless, a good steward of God, a good servant of God, not self-willed. Okay, once again, these are the nots. All right, these are the knots. Okay, where did we start the knots? We started the knots.
Not chaotic.
Yeah, knots. No. We started knots. Okay, these are the change color. These are the knots. Okay. Okay, these are the knots. All right. The knots. All right. We're going to see that these are the knots, and then we're going to go to the twos. Okay. You're going to see that contrast. This is where it starts there with the knots. So if we back up one verse, you'll see that for this reason I've left you a creed that you should have order and lacking that you should have ordered the things that are lacking and appoint elders in the city. I command you, if a man is blameless, husband of one wife, having faithful children, not accused. That's where this is where the knots start. Okay, not accused of disobedience or insubordination, For a bishop must be blameless, a steward of God, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not given to wine. And now we're continuing on with the next not. Okay? Remember I told you that when you're studying these words, once again, just a piece of trivia for you trivia buffs. When you're looking at this classical Greek word, the difference between the word and the opposite of the word is just one letter. It's just an A. You know what I mean? And it's just like saying not or un. If you really want to know what unhappy is, you need to understand what happy is, right? You really got to embrace understanding what happy is. And then once you understand the full extent of what happy is, then go to the exact opposite. And that's what unhappy is, okay? So these are kind of the things that they're doing here. It's the not accused, not rebellious, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted to wine. The next one is going into the knots. I guess I can write the knots down here a little bit further. This is where the knots start. The knots start, right? The next one here in verse 7 is talks about violence, okay? So it says, not addicted to wine and not violent, all right? Now, violent, I think it's funny because my buddy up in California, my best friend, his name is Mark Bruiser, and his last name is Bruiser, and that's what this word means. This violent word means bruiser. I laugh at him and say things to him, to his face, about that. Here it is. This describes somebody who is just quarrelsome, okay? Somebody who's just looking for a fight. Somebody who just likes to argue, They'd rather be right than be anything else. You know what I mean? So if anything comes up, they would just rather, argue about it. You know what I mean? They're always looking to have that, to be right, and always looking. Basically their motivations are fueled, I guess you could say, by their desire to just be right. All right, is the concept. The word does mean bruiser, but it means ready to strike is what it looks for, is what it means. Ready to strike. It's just somebody, have you ever known anybody in your life where you don't talk to them about certain things? You're afraid. You're afraid that, well, if I mention this to so-and-so, then they're going to lose their junk. They're going to lose their mind over this topic. They're going to get all fussy about it or whatever. So you just avoid talking to that person about that. Well, that's kind of a thing. It's talking about this, but it's once again, now that we understand what this violent thing that we're talking about here, we're saying to not be that. Go to the exact opposite. So what was being asked of us is that our emotions not fuel our interactions with others. That you don't disqualify yourself. Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians, about disqualifying yourself from being someone that another person would want to come and talk to, right? Nobody wants to come and talk to somebody if they know that they're going to be quarrelsome or they're going to fight with them or they're, I can't bring this up with this person because they're just going to fight me on it. So I just don't even talk to them, right? So this is kind of the idea here, is to make sure that you're not doing that. You should not have this combative spirit. So when somebody calls you, sometimes you don't like saying things to you, or when you're in school, you don't want to tell your teacher something because you're afraid you'll get in trouble. You don't want to tell your parents because you're afraid you get in trouble. But you need to have that non-combative kind of spirit about you. It is kind of the thing. So this violence there is how you interact basically with the world around you, and be prone to be violent, prone to be combative. All right, be ready to strike, looking for a fight. Okay. Any thoughts? Next one. quick-tempered, or not quick-tempered, I should say, not quick-tempered, not giving to wine, not violent. So the difference between the quick-tempered and the violent, I don't know if I should make this distinction. Quick-tempered is that short fuse, right? So quick-tempered is that short fuse. Violent is the idea that you're combating, okay? So the idea behind quick-tempered is that you can easily go from 0 to 100 like that, okay? Somebody who's violent is someone who is just constantly combative, okay? Does that make sense? They're already at 100. You know what I mean? They're just looking for an opening to tell you what they're thinking or what's going on. Does that make sense? That's kind of the difference.
One is thought, the other is action?
Yeah, kind of. One is, yeah, exactly. This person is just, you know, I guess you could say they're a little on edge, all right? This person is just constantly, you know, that type of disposition. You know what I mean? Just constantly has that kind of disposition, I guess you could say. I hope that kind of works things out, because a lot of these things, like I was just talking to you about addiction, because that kind of talks about being in control. And then here in a couple in a verse, you know, in a few words, we're going to see self-control. So what's the contrast between the two? Because they kind of sound like the same things, right? Well, that's why I kind of want to point these out, how they're kind of different. You know what I mean? How they're kind of the same, but they're kind of different, okay? All of which have, like this part is how you conduct yourself with your family, okay? These two things are byproducts, all right? These two things, whether your children are chaotic or have rebellious dispositions, it is because of your disposition, okay? All right, if your kids, you know, once again, I told you, if your kids have a problem with authority, well, the first authority that any kid comes across is that of their parents. If they have a problem with the authority that they have in their own house, how do you think they're going to handle the authority of the world? You know what I mean? If they can't submit themselves to the authority under their own four walls. You get what I'm saying? So that rebellion. But this is, you know, once you figure out how you're dealing with yourself and how your family reacts to you, this is how you get there. This is you, okay? Okay, moving on. Just want to make sure we're getting our heads straight with what we're talking about here. Okay, not violent, not greedy for money. Okay, not greedy for money. This one right here is, once again, your thought process or your disposition about how you view stuff. Okay, it's talked about this word greedy means eager to gain whatever it is that you're trying to get at any cost. That's what this word greedy means. It's somebody who is just, you know, desperate to gain. All right, whatever it is they're talking about. What are they talking about? They're talking about money. Anybody who's desperate to gain. There's an insatiableness about wealth. You know what I mean? You want to procure it in any way possible, even if it's, you know, kind of shady or whatever. It doesn't matter, because that's what you want to do. Okay? You are greedy for that money. Okay? Once again, this is a mindset. This is a mindset. Okay? This is a mindset. What it's saying here is to not be greedy. Okay? So, savvy businessmen, I mean, they can easily be leaders in the church. You know, the disciples themselves, you know, some of them were fishermen and, you know, kind of on the lower rung of things. Some of them were not. Some of them were poets and leaders and you know, stuff like that. So being a savvy businessman doesn't disqualify you from being a leader, okay? It's how you came upon your wealth. If you did it in an honorable fashion, if you have a generous spirit, when it comes to these things. You know what I mean? One of the main things that I learned through some of the companies that I've worked for in my career in the secular world was some businesses, it was one or the other, basically. You either had one philosophy or the other. One company was like, you do whatever it takes for the customer. Okay? The customer's always right. You do whatever you want. You do whatever you can for the customer. Even if that means, like, you tell your employees, like the guy at the front desk at the hospital, you can't let people in, all right? And you like are hardcore, you can't come in, right? But I've worked for other companies that were actually better companies, thriving companies, companies that are growing, that say you got to take care of your employees. Because if you take care of your employees, then in turn your employees will be happy and they will be willing to take care of your guests that come. It's the philosophy of looking at people as guests versus customers. A customer is somebody who just comes in, gives you money, you throw something at them and they get out of here. We want a guest as if you're welcoming them into your home. So you need to make that, whatever business that you have, you need to make the employees feel like it's their home. So then they, in turn, will take care of it and look after it, type of a thing. This is kind of the concept. A savvy businessman is one that is honorable and generous, who looks after people in a grander scheme. It's not about themselves. They will find success if they can impart success to others. So this is that not greedy thing, okay? Any thoughts on that? All right, moving on. Now, this right here, not violent, not greedy for money, ends verse 7. And it also ends the nots, okay? These are the not to do, okay? And then you're going to get into verse 8. Verse 8 with the, this is kind of the not to do. And then this is the what to do, okay? Not to do, what to do. How's that? All right? These are the contrasts that you have there, the nots to do's and the what's to do's. So now we're going to kind of shift gears, and now we're going to see this whole significant thing. How we know that we shift from the not to do's but what to do's is by one word. But. But. Okay? Yeah, that's, if you ever heard anybody tell you anything, they come up to you and they have something bad news for you or something they want to say. They say, well, this is such a great thing, and da-da-da-da-da, and I think that there's such great work being done here, and blah, blah, blah. But this is not right, okay? So everything prior to that but is kind of thrown away. You know what I mean? And, that everything prior to that but is kind of like, discounted. This right here is not that kind of but. This one is a gear-shifting but. It's one going from, instead of, do this, okay? Instead of being like this, do this, okay? So it's a not to do and a what to do, all right? And it all transpires by that word, the very first word, in verse 8, but, okay? So now we see that as a gear shift. Once again, we have a whole list of things that are ticked off that we, don't do this, don't do that, do. But now, instead of doing all that stuff, it's one thing just to tell somebody what not to do, but he also wants to instruct you on what to do. And that's kind of an awesome thing. So he starts off here in verse 8. First thing out of the gate, hospitable. Okay? First thing right out of the gate, hospitable. Back in the first century, hospitality was a huge thing, okay? People would literally, some new family or whatever would come into town, or some new person would come into town. It was not uncommon in the day for that person to just go up to a house and, hi, I'm new in town. Can you help me out? And you know what? The social graces dictated that you would be hospitable to them. Maybe you'd invite them in. Maybe you'd give them a meal. Maybe you'd let them stay there for the night. Whatever. Okay? But hospitality was a big deal back then. All right? Because they wanted to make sure that everybody was feeling welcome and you were generous in doing that. Hospitality was huge back then. It's not like today. Somebody comes knocking on your door today. Hi, I'm new in town. I haven't had anything to eat. Got anything? You're like, get out of here, man. You're like, I'm going to call the cops. Get out of here. What are you talking about? No, it wasn't like that back then. Back in the day, they were a little bit more hospitable. This word hospitable that's used here literally means loving of strangers. It means generous to guests. Okay? Now, if you are calling somebody a stranger or a guest, okay, think about this for a second. If you're calling somebody a stranger, what does that imply?
Somebody you don't know.
It's somebody you don't know, but even further than that, not only are they somebody you don't know, they're different. They're different, okay? It's not so much that you don't know them, they're different, okay? They're a stranger. Hence the word, if you take the off the end, what's the word? They're strange, okay? I don't know you. You're kind of different. And you're not. And the reason why it doesn't say not be unhospitable, okay, is because it's trying to tick off things that list things that you're not supposed to do. But in this case, you should definitely be hospitable. You should be generous to guests. You should be lovers of strangers. Okay? In the New Testament, if someone was foreign, okay, if someone was foreign or different, you needed to get over that. Okay? You needed to get over it. All right? That was kind of the concept back then. Somebody who was hospitable was someone who was welcoming, someone that would overcome the natural tension that comes between you and somebody else that may be different. Okay? And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. Sometimes culture dictates that. Sometimes the world dictates that. Sometimes your experience, human experience dictates that. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of different things. You know what I mean? I have some friends that, they grew up and they were kind of crazy sometimes. You know what I mean? Lots of pastors' kids that were crazy, not my kids. But there were other kids, that were kind of crazy. And when they got older, they kind of got over their crazy tendencies and things like that, matured, and now are willing to, get into service and things like that, doing things for churches, doing things for God. And when sometimes older people will look at them and go, so-and-so wants to help. So-and-so, oh no, Well, now we're talking about the maturity and your reputation, right? So your reputation, should you be held to the sins of your past? Well, man alive, if that were true, none of us would be.
We'd all be dead.
Yeah, we'd not, does that mean that those things that you did in the past are good things? Well, no. Maybe you didn't do things that were good. But you shouldn't let the past deny you from the future. It could be a stepping stone that got you to the future, but it shouldn't be something that should hinder you from moving forward. This hospitality thing is that kind of a concept. If you can get over the natural tension between somebody else, maybe somebody else's maturity or reputation, okay? Because this is what we're talking about here, all right? Maybe they're a little different. Maybe they're a little strange. Maybe they're a little foreign. You know what I mean? Maybe there's, maybe there's potential language barriers or something. Or how many times have we had missionaries that have come out here where they speak decent English, but it's not their first language? You know what I mean? So sometimes it's hard for them to be able to communicate properly. Well, you got to get over that. You know what I mean? They're probably having as hard a time listening to you as you are listening to them, because they're having a hard time understanding what you're saying as much as you're having a hard time understanding what they're telling you. So, so you got to move beyond that, okay? So this hospitality thing is kind of a big deal. The first what to talks about how we work outwardly. So once again, this is how we are at home. This is who you are personally. Now this is, starting in verse 8, what you do outwardly, right? This is because of who you are, it will affect who your family is and affect how you handle people in the church, right? So hospitality. Hospitality is a big one. First one, hospitality. Hospitality. Is that right? Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, see? Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. I knew it was. Okay, so anyway, hospitality naturally needs to get over that. Okay? How much time we got? We got time. Oh, good. Next one. First thing you got to be is hospitable. Next one. A lover of what is good. When you read that, what's the first thing that comes in your mind? The first thing that came into my mind is duh. That's the first thing that came into my mind. Okay? A lover of what is good. First thing that came into my mind is, well, duh. You're not a lover of things that are bad, right? Because that wouldn't make you a very nice person. You know what I'm saying? So when I read stuff like this, when you look at it and you read it, and it's one of those duh moments, like, duh, you want to be a lover of things that are good. Obviously, there must be more to it. Okay? That's why I'm here. Okay? This word lover of what is good is actually one word in the Greek. We make it into several words because to translate that one word, it's a compound word, actually. It's a compound word in the Greek. But to translate that compound word in the Greek into English, we have to use several words. Okay? So this lover of what is good describes this deep-seated love and a deep-seated submission to the Lord. Okay? It's a compound word. It means it actually is just it could just be lover of what is good. I guess you could put that of what is good. Hold on, out of space. That's okay. Lover of what is good. I guess I can put that underneath so I won't run out of space. Sorry guys, I'm working this out. Lover of what is good. Okay. Now, the word lover is basically what we're looking at here, and it's a compound word, all right? The first part of the word is philios, or philehos. What is that? That's that friendshipy kind of, companion-y kind of love.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. The city of brotherly love. Okay? That's the first part of that word. That's where we get the love, love what is good. That's where we get the love part. Okay? The second part, agathos, means honorable. Okay? Like good or honorable. Okay? So when you put these two words together, you're talking about someone who is a friend to or a companion with what is honorable or what is good. What does that mean? If you are a companion to what is honorable, what does that mean?
You're a good person.
Yeah, I mean, that's
who you hang out with.
Yeah, that's what you hang out with. That's who you hang out with, right? can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends. And you choose to hang out with, you choose to be honorable. Okay, that's your companion. That's your go-to move, is to be honorable. Okay? So here we see this lover of what is good. That's really what it means. That's really in depth what it means. It means that the ultimate good that we're looking at, of course, God. All right? So here, His word, His will, the Lord's word, the Lord's will is what carries you from moment to moment. That's your companion. I like the word companion because it's someone that travels with you, right? A companion is not somebody that you sit down and you leave and then you come back to. A companion is someone who travels with you all the time. I like that word companion, okay? So it's someone that is constantly with you, all right? This is a man who lets his actions and his motivations be constantly driven by his companion, and his companion is what is good, what's honorable. Okay, that goodness, that honorability. Okay, so when you see our English word being lover of what is good, it's the compound word. One is kind of love and one is kind of good. So lover of what is good makes sense in the English, but it's actually just that one word. It's somebody who does what's right because it's right. It's somebody who desires to do that, who constantly desires to do that. Okay, lover of what is good. Lover. Do I want to put that down? Do I want to put that down? Sorry, I could put this down. Yeah, I'll put it down. Yarn of what is good. And what is good. All right. The two words put together, companion for what is good. All right? Anybody have any thoughts about that as we come down to the last couple of minutes?
I mean, there's people that love what is bad.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and, I mean, they know it's bad, but they still love it.
Mhm.
They still.
Exactly.
They
That's
wanna
their
practice
companion.
that, yes.
You
They
know.
want to practice that lifestyle.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. And that's their companion. Their companion, their go-to move is to do whatever is pleasing to them.
Right.
They, they're obviously we're the lover of what is good. The preface there is good. So what is the good? What is the goodest thing? I went to college. What is that best thing? What is the honorable thing? Well, it would be God. God is the gold standard, right? But if we're going exactly the opposite of that, then evil would be completely selfish, right? So if you are the lover of selfishness, then the first thing you think about is not doing what's right because it's right, it's doing what's right because it's right for me, right? And if it's not right for me, I don't know if I'll pay it, what I mean? I don't think I'll participate, I don't think I care, about that kind of thing, you know what I mean? That's the kind of the mentality. Once again, these are all kind of mentalities that you have, right? And I think that lover of what is good is really seen in how you do this, right? Because if you're not, once again, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted, not out of control, not violent, not greedy, it will come through. In the hospitality that you show to people, it'll come through that, that people will be able to see your reputation, because once again, that's what we're talking about. Your reputation is that you're a companion of what is good. You do what's right because it's right. Once again, that all makes it more viable for people to come to you if they need something. You know what I mean? Not restrictive in that way. We're out of time. We'll get to the next one, which is sober-minded. Sober-minded. That's where we left off. That's where we'll start there. Sober-minded, and go from there. All right. That has to do, and we'll see sober-minded, and then just a few words after that, you're going to see self-controlled, and we already saw not quick-tempered and not addicted to wine. All these things. Just a little spoiler alert. All them deal with a level of control. And once again, we'll get into this next time, but this is once again a spoiler because we're not going to be here for another 2 weeks. Anytime you come to a level of control, self-control, what does that boil down to? Okay? If you're going to or not be in control of yourself, what does that boil down to? If you are going to be in control or not be in control, what does that boil down to what you're going to do? Choice. This is kind of where we're talking about here, and this is kind of a spoiler alert on what we're going to talk about. Once we get done with all this stuff, it all boils down to that simple thing. It's a choice. And that's where we, as individuals, need to make sure that we really pay attention. Because this is all about choice. Whether you're going to be a leader or an elder or a bishop or something like that, or whether you're just going to be a good neighbor or a hospitable person to your community, or whether you're going to be a nice driver or whatever. It goes with everything. You know what I mean? It all boils down to choice. How you're going to make that choice, that right choice, well, it's how you at your core is, and then you'll see that, lived out in your family and your hospitality, the way your reputation and all that kind of stuff. Okay? Enough of that. Let's pray. We'll be done. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this time that we can gather together here. Bless this time as we think about all that we've kind of talked about, especially going into a holiday season, when we have the opportunity, we get to have the opportunity to showcase your love to other people. And sometimes it's hard because sometimes people aren't very lovable or even likable at times. But it's not our place here to be that selfish person. We need to show our maturity and our reputation. We need to be that blameless person before this world, showing what life looks like, living for you. So, dear Lord, help us to be able to do that. Help us to be able to remember that. Help us to be able to really understand that it boils down to a choice. And the choice we need to make is one that is honoring and glorifying to you. Thank you so much for this time, dear Lord, that we got to look at a portion of your scripture. And we take this time, lift it up to you in Jesus' name. Amen.